Hello. Did you learn to read before you went to school? If so, do you feel like tell me how? I'm asking because so far everybody I met who learned to read before going to school has a different story. How? If people learn how to read once they go to first grade like I did, well, everybody has the same story. The teacher is teaching and the classroom follows. Classroom learns the way the teacher's manual tells the teacher how to do the lesson 1 and then lesson 2 and so forth. But the people who learned on their own had to find the way on their own. If you like, I'll tell you some stories that I know in no particular order. Okay, so let's start with little boy that we can call A, since it's a first story and alphabet starts with A. And usually when people start to learn how to read, first thing they learn is an alphabet. A little boy A lived in the 70s, early 70s, late 60s, I'm not sure, in a hippie commune. The grown-ups were growing vegetables in communal garden and buying seeds from a seed catalog called Nichols Nursery that was, or perhaps still is, I don't know, in Oregon. The catalog was a little bit illustrated and the vegetables were in alphabetical order. The first chapter had a big letter A, capital letter A, and there was a picture of asparagus. The next chapter with a vegetables whose names start on B. Well, there was the letter B, there was a picture of broccoli, and next chapter had a picture of a letter C and a picture of celery and so on and so forth. And that is how the little boy learned his alphabet. And later on, walking down the hill, with his mama, he, with little bit help of hers, after he noticed the letter S on a sign stop, he was able to read the first word, stop, S-T-O-P. And that is how he learned to read. Those were the beginnings. I don't know if I should tell you funny stories how he continued or just go to the next person. Let's call her B. Long time ago, when during World War II, when the antibiotics were saved only for the army, there was a shortage. It was a new drug, relatively. A little girl was raised by her grandma because the mother was locked up in sanatorium because she got tuberculosis. And father, well, you know where the fathers during the World War II were. In the library, in a public library where the grandma worked, the little girl spent her time waiting for the grandma to go home from work. And again, the books on the shelves were in alphabetical order, and when the reader came and wanted to know where can be book that was, I don't know, Alice in Wonderland or whatever, grandma would go and help the customer find the book. And if it was, let's say, I'm saying it as a made-up example, Alice in Wonderland, it was in a section with A, with a letter, big letter A written. And so that is how the little girl learned her alphabet. I'm not sure if I should tell you other funny stories about her continuing with her learning how to read after she learned very, very early how to read the alphabet, or just go on to the next person. Well, let's go for the next person. Let's call that little boy C, since it's a third story. Little boy, again, way too young to go to school yet, liked to hear children books to be read to him by his grandpa, and who used to read those children books to him, to his two older siblings. So this was like third time he is going through those books, and many of those children books had on a first inner page printed, "This book belongs to," and after two there was written names of his two siblings, because that's how they were learning how to write, by writing their names into those books. And he was asking, "What is that?" And the grandpa would read to him letter after letter the names of his two older siblings. And later on he would say, well, he wants to also write his name. And so the grandpa would show him how to write first just the first letter of his name, and he would always write it into the book that either he didn't read, Grandpa didn't read him yet, or the one he liked and wanted to be reread. And later on, gradually, he wanted to write more. He wanted to write his whole name, and that's how he gradually learned how to read capital letters of his brother and his older brother and his older sister name, and how to read and write the letters of his name. And so that's my story C. Should I go further? Funny stories about how he progressed in reading and writing, or go to the... I don't want this to be too long, so I guess I am just gonna tell you the next one. Story about, let's call him D. When D was small, his older sister was reading him from time to time stories from a thick book of fairy tales. And so, from his sister he knew what is the title of that book of fairy tales. On the cover of that book, he knew is written those several words that were the title of the book. They were not in a capital letters except the first letter. Looking and looking on it and knowing the title of the book, knowing that that is what's written there, he learned capital letter, that was the first letter of the title of that book, and lowercase letters of the rest of the title of the book. Because many letters look same in capital like in lowercase, he actually this way also learned how look some of the capital letters. This way he learned part of the alphabet. Then he was looking on anything that was printed. Where are some words from which he knows how to read some of the letters? Reading those letters and seeing where is the unknown letter, he could sometimes figure out what that word meant. This way, he gradually learned another letters. And so, the more letters he knew how to read, the less guessing there was in a words which contained some letters that he didn't know how to read. And so this way, gradually, he was able to read not just words here and there, but actually groups of words, sentences. Later on, even stories. And so, he became a fluent reader before he reached the age to go to the first grade. Okie dokie artichoke, my friends. I told you the person that we call A, another B, another C, another D, 4 people. If you send me a story how you learned how to read before you went to school, gradually we might have a whole alphabet of stories. Okay, so I guess I should finish now this talk. Goodbye. If you didn't subscribe, you may. If you like this story, you can give me thumbs up so I'll know. Goodbye. Adios, amigos.